Hi, thanks for joining us today. Today I'm very honored to have Lidia Young of Rethink Leadership Now with us for our IBE. She's a member in our Independent Business Edge, and so we're very honored to have you here today, Lidia. Thank you. You've been helping individuals and teams for over 25 years, and you've worked for companies as big as Fortune 100 companies and even smaller family-held companies. So it's a pretty big range, so you're willing to help anybody that needs some help.
Yes.
That's great. So you focus on effective leadership and team development. Can you explain for everybody today, what does that really mean?
So leadership is everything in an organization, and the emotional health of the leader shows up in everything that happens. So if the leaders are able to communicate well, if they're clear, if the vision of the organization is clear, if what people are meant to focus on, what their roles are, and when the employees know how to win, that is all about leadership, and that's what makes an organization really a high-performing organization.
Super. And I know that you focus, I mean, we talk a lot, and your emotions are something that you really focus on. And so knowing that the emotional health of the company, why is that so important?
Because all problems, including business problems, are emotional. So if you feel, for example, gosh, there's no good people out there, that's an emotional experience for you, where you don't feel really excited about interviewing people because your belief is, wow, this is like finding a needle in a haystack, and why should I invest myself in an interview with somebody? Because you have a sense or a belief that may not be empowering, that impacts how you go about doing leadership and how you go about doing business.
What does a strong, cohesive culture look like? Kind of what do you? The company's really humming on all 8 cylinders. Things are going great. What does that strong, cohesive culture look like?
So that is all about people. So employees have clarity about what their role is and what they're supposed to do. They have a sense of how to get the work done. They feel comfortable bringing up issues and concerns with their supervisors and their leaders. They celebrate successes. They celebrate each other's successes. It is not about ego at that point. It is being able to see how all parts and your success in your department really impacts the whole company. So success is all of ours. And so do companies really maximize on that sense of esprit de corps, and that we're all here and we're all one and we have the same mission and vision, and that we are accomplishing something amazing together.
Lidia, how much of a role does the CEO of the company play into this?
The CEO is central to the health of the organization. So if you have an executive team that's very siloed, the job of the CEO is to not allow that to happen. So even if the silos are excellent and there are lanes of excellence, it is really the CEO's job to completely integrate that team so that they support and care about each other. So when there are politics, when there's a meeting after the meeting, right? So the whole group is in a meeting, there's not much that happens, and think of all the money in the room that's being spent on that meeting, and people are not putting their issues or concerns on the table, and then they go off in 2s and 3s and have a chat after the meeting about what they really thought. That is draining money out of a company.
It's counterproductive.
And everybody understands that cognitively, and they may behave very differently than what they think is optimal.
When you find that, so you've worked with a team, you've gotten them on the right page, at least they understand what they've maybe been falling short of, what they should do differently. But knowing what they should do and doing it, how do you make that happen? Because that's one of the bigger challenges when the organization is like, most people know what they should do most of the time.
Right.
But getting them to do it, that's a whole nother story. Getting the implementation of what we need to do into place, make it happen.
Right. That has a great deal to do with the emotional intelligence and emotional maturity of a leader. I worked with one organization that went through a huge remodel, and they put in a beautiful break room. And the leader was showing me around and saying, hey, let's go in and look at the beautiful break room.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk past this room that's pitch darkness. He's got to turn the lights on.
Oh, no.
And there's a massive flower arrangement in the middle of the table. Everything in that room screamed, don't come in.
Right.
Don't sit here.
Mm-hmm.
There was no room for people to really even eat around that gigantic flower arrangement. So in that leader's case, they knew what to do, but they just didn't understand the spirit of it,
mm-hmm.
or that having it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Sometimes people, business owners will read articles about business cultures, and they'll say, well, Apple has foosball tables. That's got to be the secret
We're all
sauce.
going to go out and do it.
Right? And then they bring in a foosball table without really looking at what else is happening to enable that culture to thrive. So it's not about the thing,
mm-hmm.
like the break room or the foosball table. It is much more interesting and complex and simple at the same time.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing that you find is sometimes, like you said, somebody will read an article, they'll see something or have a book, and they think just because that was something that worked great for this company that, hey, we need to do that. And it may not be in sync with their industry.
Right.
May not be in sync with the culture of their company.
And what the CEO tolerates, what that executive team tolerates. Do they have clarity? Do they play favorites?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Are they fair? Do they honor and celebrate successes, or do they then own that success for themselves when they are bragging to the CEO, but don't really
mm-hmm.
uplift their people and celebrate their people?
So you're kind of touching on something I wanted to get into in a little bit anyway, so I think I'll bring it up now. Politics in a corporate organization, I mean, that can be a huge problem. I mean, what are your feelings on politics in the workforce?
I think politics are a reality and a way of life. And
mm-hmm.
what I do with politics is help people learn how to gossip much more powerfully and positively and in an empowered way, so that they can continue to share kind of the inside scoop. But the inside scoop can change from what's wrong to catching people doing the right thing, or acknowledging a team for great performance and great effort. So not changing that desire to connect
mm-hmm.
or to have kind of special information,
right.
but to help that executive team to recognize that what they say and their narrative
mm-hmm.
is crucial to getting the result that they really want.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the way you say it just makes such a big difference. It goes back to your theme of emotions and how much that plays into the culture and how people interact on this.
Right. So think about employee engagement. Employee
mm-hmm.
engagement is totally an emotional issue.
Right.
It is how people feel about the job, about the company, about the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're feeling good, when they're feeling confident, when they're feeling focused and empowered, they don't quit. They don't leave.
Mm-hmm.
When they're feeling not seen, not heard, not developed, so if they don't feel that their supervisor, their leader, their manager, their department head is not looking out for how can I help this individual grow and thrive,
right.
which is the job of leadership,
mm-hmm.
people get very disengaged. And the trend that we've been reading about lately is quiet quitting, which is people come to work and they do the absolute minimum. So they can't be fired because they're meeting expectations like a solid C,
okay.
but they're miserable. They're not really engaged, and they're not certainly being innovative,
mm-hmm.
and they're not driving performance. They're just kind of phoning it in, putting in their time.
Yeah, there's another word that we used years ago, and it really comes more into the financial challenges of team members in an organization. It's called presenteeism. They may be there, they're present,
Okay.
but they're absentee mentally.
So think how long a work day and a work week is when you're that disengaged,
Right.
when you're that unavailable for what's really going on in the moment. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So people develop all kinds of autoimmune issues, or they start calling in sick a lot because
Right.
they're just not inspired
Right.
to go in and do
Well,
the hard work of.
Or even they may even dread coming to work, and then
Right.
and then they're a cancer inside your organization, and people can feel vibes of people, and you can feel just walking by somebody if they're just not tuned in and they've got a negative vibe about them, and it just sometimes you have to cut the cancer out in order for the team to grow and get better, and if you can't get them to change.
True. And a lot of times leaders don't recognize the impact that they have or what they're really doing. So I worked with an executive team where the CEO in a leadership team would sit like this, right? And everybody around
Wow,
the
that's
table,
a great body language.
right? And everybody around the table was really nervous
Mhm.
because they could not tell what that leader was thinking.
Right.
And so when I pointed out the body language to the CEO, he was unaware of his body language, and he said, "No, I was just thinking."
Right.
But he didn't share that with the
Mhm.
group, and it made everybody tense
Right.
and on high alert, and they were assuming that he was already unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So their willingness to share continued to get less and less and less.
Wow, that's crazy. Lydia, when you first, because as consultants or as a firefighter, you're taking over a new organization, and you're first coming in, there's always some common themes that you tend to see in dysfunctional organizations. What are some themes that you see on a kind of a regular basis when you go in and do your first initial analysis, meet and greet, get to know your discovery phase? What are some things you find that in dysfunctional companies that may not dysfunctional companies, may just companies that want to improve?
Right.
I mean, we're not all in the business of dealing with companies that are just 2 feet in the grave, but I mean, they may want to go from good to great.
Yes. So a thing that's common is that there are way too many objectives, and so they think everything is crucial, important, and they don't really identify what are their top priorities.
Right.
They don't agree as an executive team
Yes.
on the priorities, and so they send mixed messages to the people within the organization. And again, silos, right?
Mhm.
So do they help people to feel like an integrated company? And also, does the leadership team model good leadership?
Right.
Do the leaders hold each other accountable?
Mhm.
Do the leaders share information when something's happened so that people can continue to be on the same page?
Right.
So a common issue is that they're not performing as well as they would like to.
Mhm.
And so what I do is discover what it is that they're trying to create in that organization and what they want that culture to be. What does success really look like for them?
Right.
And then help them get what they want,
Mhm.
but help them by developing their people.
Excellent, excellent. So there was a study that came out a while back. Google put it out. Would you mind sharing more about that study and what it spelled out?
So the Google study was fascinating because Google, which has analytics about everything,
Mm-hmm.
somebody asked a really great question, which was what makes for an exceptional team? What creates a high performance team? And it wasn't obvious. And they studied over 180 teams for over a year.
Wow.
And they were looking at, so is it all like, balance of introverts and extroverts, balance of work styles?
Mm-hmm.
Were these people that were friends after work? What were they very verbal, vocal, etc.? And they could not come up with it. And somehow they stumbled upon a term that enabled them to ask new questions, and that term is psychological safety.
Oh, okay.
And when they went back and looked at all of the teams that performed really well,
Mm-hmm.
psychological safety was always present. It was the number one characteristic of that team. And other teams that had equally talented people that didn't have psychological safety did not perform that well at all.
Right.
So what is psychological safety? That is a beautiful, wonderful, big question, right? So psychological safety is about, if I screw up,
You're not getting killed.
Well, I'm comfortable owning my mistake. I know that on my team, there's a tolerance for mistakes, especially if it leads to innovation, right? So if there are mistakes, but they enable a huge leap forward, that mistake was really valuable and beneficial. And it's also about, that you're being valued for your contribution. Another interesting quality on those really high performance teams was that people talked about equally. So it wasn't one person that was dominating or leading, or it wasn't one bright light that was like, well, here's this stellar idea, and they were the only voice in the room. That there was a real balance of lots of sharing and lots of people giving their ideas and pushing back on something if they didn't agree, right? So the agreements are made in the room, and you can trust that those agreements are real, that people are not going to be talking later about it behind your back and disagreeing with the agreement that was made. So psychological safety is about trust, right? I trust what I'm hearing and seeing. I trust you, you trust me, and that really frees people up to create something extraordinary.
Can you explain the benefits of a good culture to a company?
Number one, a good culture provides tremendous profitability.
Okay.
A good culture is efficient. A good culture does not have much turnover. People don't want to leave an exciting place to work. And it's not about a sexy industry. I am currently working with a company that I absolutely love, and they happen to pour concrete.
Right.
And these leaders have developed so beautifully that they have zero turnover.
Wow, that's amazing.
And this is working
especially in that type of an industry.
Right.
Yep.
This is Missouri in the summer in the 90s, and nobody leaves because the culture is so transformational. They develop their people, the leaders listen, the leaders care. So it's not about, well, if I had a sexier product or a sexier company, then I could have a better culture. It has nothing to do with what that company focuses on.
Yeah, that's a great testimonial right there. That's awesome, absolutely awesome. So Lidia, trust is can you get into trust a little bit as far as the culture? We've kind of talked on it quite a bit, but trust is just a root of the culture.
It is absolutely the foundation of the culture, or the lack thereof really impacts the culture. So trust is also about being willing to speak up. So if I have an issue with you and you're my coworker, to go direct and work through it with you versus talking about you. Right? Trust is also about, if you and I are working on a project and you did an awesome job on a part of it, is my being willing and mature enough to, first of all, see it, second of all, to acknowledge it and celebrate it, and to feel proud to be your team member because you did such an incredible job. Trust is also about believing the compliments people give you. So if it's a really trusting environment, you can also receive it. So imagine a culture where a leader may give a compliment so they can manipulate you into doing something more than what you really wanted to do.
Okay.
Right? So that is a super horrible lack of trust because, like you said earlier, we can sense what people are feeling. And we respond, and we can smell a rat when there's a rat. And so it's really about those leaders being highly conscious, emotionally aware, and very intentional and very deliberate about the actions that they take and about how they communicate.
Yeah, if somebody is eye to eye and heart to heart with you, you know that. You feel that, you know that, and if they're not, and you're not on the same page, you can feel that too. And that, like you said, that's the trust issue that just kind of drags into everything. So Lidia, before we sign off today, I want to see, is there anything else that we should talk about regarding what you do and how you help companies, get to that great status of low turnover and good trust and great communication and all owning everything together. And anything else you want to kind of add in today?
I do. Emotional health, organizational health, emotional well-being, and also empowered emotional states. It's a technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's learnable. One thing I love about emotional intelligence is there's no upper end. If you're growing in your emotional intelligence, that will continue through your lifetime.
Right.
So really focusing on that awareness and the intentionality so that you know what you're doing and why, and you're very clear about how you're impacting others, and you're comfortable with feedback. I teach something called the emotional operating system, and it absolutely deals with everything that would enable a highly empowered leader, highly empowered teams that gives them superior results.
Right, that's great. And the individuals within that team.
And the individuals within that team.
And it's a great system. I've seen that. It's awesome. You do a wonderful job. You've got a lot of great companies you've helped out over the years become, go from good to great. And so That's awesome. Lydia, thank you very much for joining us today. We're just very honored to have you as part of the team, and it's been a great time to talk with you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.